Innistrad Midnight Hunt spoiler season has just started, and already the set is shaping up to be pretty crazy. So today, we're going to be taking a look at some newly spoiled cards that are absolutely absurd.
The Magic Historian.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well, because we are here to talk about some amazingly absurd cards from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Like I said, the spoiler season for this set has just started, and the set genuinely is shaping up to look pretty crazy from what we've seen so far. But today, I have the choicest morsels in terms of absurdity. Now, they are different types of absurd, which adds a nice layer of contrast to this. But before we dive into the spoilers, I just want to let you know that the lore video that I mentioned yesterday, the lore video that covers the beginning of Innistrad Midnight Hunt lore, is now available over on the Fantasy Geographic channel. So, if you want to know more about the backstory, what's going on right now in the world of Innistrad, why mankind is in danger, and what will save them, I will leave a link to the video at the end of this video and also down in the comment section as well so that you can easily find it. That out of the way, let's dive into the absurdity, starting out with the card that inspired this entire video. This card had me dropping my jaw. As soon as I saw it, I read it and went, no way. This is absolutely amazing. So we have Unnatural Growth, and I already love this card so much. So it's 4 green and 1, clearly slanted for some heavy mono green action. Wizards of the Coast doesn't really want you to easily be able to splash this into other colors. Now, yes, if you do play 2 colors, getting 4 green is doable, but when they put a casting cost like this, you can tell that they're really trying to limit it to 1, maybe 2 colors. They don't want this showing up in a like 4 or 5 color good stuff deck, because this is a very, very powerful enchantment. All right, so what is it? It's an enchantment that says at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. And when I first read that, I literally had to reword it. I'm like, there's no way that my brain just saw what I hope and think I saw. And then I read it again and I went, the power, the majesty, the glory. It's absolutely absurd. Every turn, when your combat starts, every creature you have out swells to twice its size. It's not even double power and not toughness. It's both of them. And it's not just one creature. It's every single creature. This will make the combat math a nightmare for your opponents, where basically they better be able to take care of creatures outside of combat. You better hope you're playing some kind of red burn deck and you can set the creatures on fire or blast them with lightning before they double up and come trundle bussing down. Now, I want you to understand something else. This enchantment isn't legendary. It's not restricted to 1. You can have 4 copies of this enchantment out, and each one will double. So if you had just a 1/1, the first enchantment makes it a 2/2. The second makes it a 4/4. Then it becomes an 8/8. Then it becomes a 16/16. So just for a 1/1 with no boosts, no abilities, just some little jank bag goat token or something like that, is this massive hulking slavering beast. Like, dude, I love gigantic, stompy, smashy creatures. I love Giganosaurus, and that's 10/10. One of these makes it a 20/20. Oh, my brain just goes pew with the possibilities, man. I love it. It's very satisfying. The concept of doubling things is already very satisfying. I know there's some people who feel like, oh, these doubling effects are too much for Magic. I don't know. Maybe they are. But at the end of the day, I love this so much, and I want it in my cube. And we haven't even talked about the flavor text or the flavor behind the card. The flavor text says, with the cycles of day and night unspooled, the twisted sway of the moon only grew and grew. I love using the term unspooled. How frequently do you see that used for anything? If you're not familiar with the idea, picture like a spool of thread and now it's coming unspooled. So this thread is just, it's going everywhere. That's the idea. It's not this tightly controlled sort of thing anymore. The cycle and day and night, I should say, has been disrupted. It's been ruined. And we actually cover that in the first installment of the Innistrad lore. So if you want to know what's going on with the day and night cycle and the dangers that poses for mankind, you can check out that video. And also, the artwork really helps illustrate it as well. Look at the scale of this werewolf. This is a massive hulking werewolf. Werewolves, some of them are 3-3, 4-4. This guy's got to be like an 8-8. Look at the size of him compared to the villagers that are scurrying around. Also, take a look at the club that he is holding. It's literally an uprooted tree, all right? These werewolves are getting emboldened by the ever-lengthening night. And more than being emboldened, they are literally being made more powerful by the new cycle of the moon. And it's not just affecting werewolves. It's affecting vampires as well. So this card ties together so well the concept of unnatural growth from the perspective of what's going on the world of Innistrad. So for me, this card is an absolute home run. I love the fact that you have these homes, right? It's obviously set at nighttime. We're in the middle of a village in Innistrad, and I love the style of buildings that they have. I don't know exactly what this is supposed to be. I don't know if this is like German or Dutch inspired, but either way, I love these sort of buildings here. And the light inside the windows would normally be inviting. Come in where it's warm and comfortable. But going into these buildings is not going to save you from a werewolf this size. It's easily going to be able to smash your home apart and pull you out the window like that old video game Rampage. Whoop, pop you in the mouth, jump, jump, jump. That's 100 points. You know what I'm talking about? This card is an absolute home run on every level, and I'm so excited to play with it. I can't wait to have multiple copies of this on the board. It's going to feel so good because I play a 250 card green mono tower, right? So it goes in perfectly. I'm tripping over my words in my excitement here. Anyhow, let us move on to the next piece of absurdity, because I could talk about this card a lot longer. I'm in love. Next up, we've got Croaking Counterpart. Now, this one is a different kind of absurd. It's not an overpowered kind of absurd. It is a very fun kind of absurd. So, Croaking Counterpart is 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 for a sorcery that admittedly looks like a creature from the artwork, and that's because it makes a creature token. So what does it do? Create a token that's a copy of target non-frog creature, except it's a 1/1 green frog. Now, you're creating a direct copy of the creature, which means this token will have all of that creature's abilities. Things like First Strike, Menace, any kind of tap abilities. Everything about that creature is copied. Every single aspect, with the exception that its stats are a 1/1. So, if you're copying some gigantic beastly creature with great abilities, you don't get the power and toughness. And that makes sense. I mean, if this straight up just made a copy of any non-frog creature and copied the power and toughness, like this lets you copy your opponent's creatures. Bear that in mind. A lot of blue cards that are this cheap to copy creatures will only let you copy your own creature. This lets you copy anybody's creature, with obviously the distinction that it's 1/1. And I do really love the absurd concept behind this. Look at the flavor text. It says, "Frog is the sincerest form of flattery." So this is literally some little bog frog that has jumped up aspirations in life. He doesn't want to just be a frog croaking out in the bog. He wants to live the good life. He sees the humans charging out of the village with their little tri-corner hats on their horses, off to try and deal with the menace of werewolves or vampires, whatever it is. But he watches them bravely soldier forth, and he thinks to himself, he aspires to that level of greatness. So he scrounges around the bog to find everything he can to emulate them. Look at the scavenged concept here. You can see the tri-corner hat is literally a leaf. It's a gigantic old leaf that is dead, so it's brown, and has like a bite ripped out of the front of it to give it that same sort of tri-corner feel. But then it's got that cute little like apple stem, leaf stem part coming off of it. And obviously a little 1/1 frog can't ride a horse, right? So what does he have? He has a little bog bird. That is his steed. And he's got scrounged up wood little shoulder guards, and his garments are like made out of leaves, and apparently a little ring that he was able to find tied across. And he's got a staff to represent maybe the spears that these riders would have. He looks like a mockery of like a resident of Gavany. Do you know what I mean? Like, he really does have that great vibe. And the idea, and there's more than one frog that has this aspiration, right? Because the spell has flashback. So there's just apparently a certain breed of frogs that desires more. And even if it's a gigantic beastly frog like the Gitrog monster, the croaking counterpart doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants a life above and beyond being a bog frog. It's so absurd and fun, and honestly, not a bad card. Depending on what you get to copy with this could genuinely be really potent, and the double use of it is amazing. So the flavor of this card is on point. The absurdity of it is absolutely delightful to me. Like, imagine you were one of these riders of Gavany, and this little frog comes croaking out. He's riding his little bird, and you look down and you're like, wait a minute, there's something up with this frog. And the more you look at him and look at your fellows who are with you, you're like, oh, dude, look at this. He's mimicking us. Oh my God, he wants to be a rider like us. I mean, how would you not make him your mascot, right? You would instantly adopt this guy and be like, bro, you're part of our crew. And this frog won't respond to being called a frog. Like, if you treat him like a rider, then he responds, riders, stand at attention. And the frog's like, getting all like, yes, I'm ready. Like, it's so fun and so absurd. I love it. Now, let us move on to our final absurdity, my friends. And that is the sludge monster. This one is absurd in a different way than the other two, all right? So, sludge monster is 2 blue and 3 for a 5/5 horror. Wow, man. Blue creatures have come a long way from back in the day. Big creatures in the earliest days of Magic had big drawbacks to offset them. And blue didn't get very many big creatures, and their drawbacks were really, really bad, right? Because blue is essentially supposed to be the worst creature color. Green's the best creature color, so it should get the biggest creatures more easily with smaller drawbacks, even though a lot of the drawbacks back then were way disproportionate. But just getting a 5/5 for 5 mana in blue is already really solid. But its ability is so good. Whenever Sludge Monster enters the battlefield or attacks, put a slime counter on up to one other target creature. Non-horror creatures with slime counters on them lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 2/2. And the flavor text says, tracking it isn't the hard part. This is an amazing concept. It is a horrific monster that is made out of sludge. But more importantly, whatever it touches with its sludgy tentacles, it literally turns into sludge. You can see in the foreground of the artwork, we have what was a regular human who has now been turned into a sludge beast. You can see how he's all flowy and meldy, and his face has a gelatinous gray vibe to it, and his mouth is opened in the scream of horror, but probably it's just a bubbling, mucusy sound emanating from that hole, if he even has like a voice box or any of that anymore, right? Who knows what's happened to his larynx and all the internals as he's been turned into sludge. And it removes all of your abilities. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter what kind of magical capabilities you have. Once you're touched by these tentacles, you become a sludge beast. And this is a repeatable effect. It's whenever it comes out, and whenever it attacks. So this is an endless way to turn your opponent's best creatures into sludgy, gross, absurd blobs. I think of a monster going out, boom, 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 and people just melting down into sludge. The absurdity of it is absolutely amazing. And you know what? You can use this ability both defensively to take your opponent's creatures down, but you can actually also use this to give yourself a benefit in terms of, now in this set we have an ability called Decayed. So you end up with creatures tokens being made that have Decayed, that says once you attack with them you lose that creature token. But if you turn them into these 2/2 sludge monsters, then all of a sudden they lose their abilities, which means they lose the decay ability, which means the tokens stick around, right? So this, to me, is a really amazing concept. I love the idea of this. Is the kind of thing that you would tell your children about. Don't go out, don't go down by the water side. There are sludge monsters. They will turn you into little goop babies, and it's an absolute nightmare. I love it. The artwork is both dark, terrifying, and kind of hilarious at the same time. Because you can look at old Goopy Boy down in the bottom and think about the horror that's happening to him, or you can just be like, man, he looks silly. But either way, my friends, those are the different varieties of absurdity I had to share with you today. Again, I invite you to come over to Fantasy Geographic, my lore channel, and enjoy some Innistrad Midnight Hunt lore, link at the end of the video. Big thank you to all of my patrons for supporting my channel. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like so that YouTube knows you enjoyed it. Other than that, thanks for coming by, my friends, and I will see you guys next time.